And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with the Game Boy Geek.
Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today we are going to be traveling to the other side of the world, a completely different continent where it's hot, very hot. Talking about Africa. Ticket to Ride, the heart of Africa is what we're looking at today. It's an expansion, Days of Wonder. For Ticket to Ride, you have to have either Ticket to Ride, one of the base games, the USA, the Europe, the Markland, stuff like that, in order to play this, because it just comes with a map and some cards. So you need a base. This is an expansion. I'll show you how it's played, how it's different, and what I think about it on the other side. All aboard. Let's take a train through Africa. Okay, here's a bird's eye view of the Africa board. It is played the long way, similar to how India is played. And it goes pretty much from South Africa all the way to Central Africa here. Let's take a closer look. It has some cool sections that go from not just cities to countries. So we have Nigeria and Chad and Sudan. So different areas, two different ways to get to each of those countries. Another thing you'll notice from the board is you look at like the center here and we see all purple, blue, and green. And down here we have all orange, yellow, and red. And that's for a reason, because this map brings in what we call terrains that we're going to talk about that makes this map extremely different from all the rest. And how it does that is, like normal, you'll have your 5 train cards that you can pretty much pull. But in addition to that, there's a deck called the terrain deck. And so here we see this, and 2 cards will always be up from the terrain deck, and that's this one here. And now, in addition to taking any one of these cards like normal, you can take one of these, or you can take 2 of these as your turn, or 1 and 1. It doesn't matter. So basically, in addition to one of your train cards, you could take one of these, or you could take both of them. That would be your turn. What these train cards do is, you'll see there's 3 different trains on here. So we have white, gray, and black, and we have purple, blue, and green, and these are sort of thematically different parts of the terrain. For example, the white ones are mountain and cliffs. These ones right here are jungles and forests. And the last one that's sort of the reddish and orange and yellow are essentially the desert and savanna cards. So those are the different terrain cards that are there. And you can take those. You actually start with one in front of you, and we'll talk about how these work. Another thing you notice as you look at these different terrains, that there's no double roots in the middle of the board at all. Only the double roots are pretty much just around the end. So this is a very fierce, very cutthroat, very block heavy map. It's a very aggressive map. And the double roots can only be played just like the normal Ticket to Ride with 4 or 5 players. With 3 or less, only one of the double roots is open. There's also 2 routes that require ferries. So essentially just like I think what was introduced in Europe. To do this route on this train right here, you would need to have a wild locomotive to match the locomotive. So it'd be 2 of any color and then a locomotive. And then here you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you'd have 4 of any color and then 2 wilds to do this route here. And the wilds are used just normally like the regular USA Ticket to Ride. Now talking about the destination tickets, there's a few of them that go to different countries. And as we showed you earlier on the board, this one would go up to the Nigeria section. And there's basically 2 routes that go into Nigeria and 2 that go into Chad and 2 that go into Sudan. So essentially you'd be going from this city, Windhoek, which I probably pronounced terribly, and you're going all the way into the country itself. And so those are sort of city to countries. Now they also range anywhere from 5, which is the smallest one, all the way up to 27. And you look at that 27 point, you go, whoa, do you have to go forward and back? Well, not really. You're going to Madagascar. Madagascar actually has 2 entrances, and you could pick either one of those. So if I zoom out here a little bit, you'll see that the Madagascar here actually has 2 sections of the board. You could choose either one of those anytime you have a Madagascar card, but they range anywhere from 5 to 27 points. So let's talk about those terrain cards and what they do. Again, you start with one. You can grab them instead of a train card. And let's say I have one up in front of me. Now, if I were to play 3 yellow trains or some combination of yellows and wilds, and I was to put 3 trains here, if I have this card in front of me and I have as many of these types of terrain as anybody else, meaning nobody has more of this type of terrain than me, when I play this train, I have the option to also discard this terrain card to get double of the amount of points. And again, nobody can have more of these than me. As long as I am at least tied with the most, I can throw this card down. So for example, if it was 1, 2, or 3 trains long that route, I would normally get 1, 2, or 4 points. But if I throw down a a terrain card, I would double that. So instead of getting 1, I'd get 2, 2, I'd get 4, instead of 4, I'd get 8. Now, if you go for routes that are 4, 5, and 6 long, you have to throw 2 terrain cards down. But in that case, if you threw a two terrain cards of that same terrain on a 6 route, wow, you're getting 30 points. So some of these can really be big, but you got to remember, you got to have more of those cards than everybody else in order to do that, or at least have as many as other people. The destination tickets, you get 4 to start the game. You have to select 2, and then later on, if you take destination tickets, you get 4 of them, and you have to select 1. And at the end of the game, the only bonus is the African Globetrotter, which essentially is whoever has the most completed tickets gets 10. You don't get anything for the longest train in this game, and that is Ticket to Ride Africa. All right, well, most of you probably know that I love Ticket to Ride. I played it probably more than anything else in my collection. I even still love just the USA version. It's awesome. And you've seen my reviews of the different expansions I've done. India and Switzerland, I've done, now we're looking at Africa. I'm going to be doing Netherlands soon. I've done the Asia expansion. And every single one of these expansions, the reason why I love these expansions, because usually it's a new map, right? So obviously just the topography is different, and the different ways you move different. And they all play very differently. And this one has just enough different that it's easy to teach to people that have played Ticket to Ride, the regular one. There's not too many moving things there. Ferries are really easy to teach. And then the terrain is really the new big thing. Now, let's talk about the map itself. Oh my gosh, this thing is brutal. Oh man, this is cutthroat. Up until this point, the 2 or 3 player Switzerland map for me was like the most cutthroat. But if you play Africa with 4 or 5, forget about it. You will be punching each other in the head. I swear. Whoa, is it mean? Because there's like those no double routes in the middle of the map. And so you're going to be trying to lay things down, and it's going to get dicey quick. So I would play this with very experienced Ticket to Ride players that really want a very competitive game. Granted, even with that being said, I did play this 2-player with my wife, and we kind of stayed out of each other's hair. And it was probably just the luck of the destination tickets we drew, but it still was a pleasant game because we kind of stayed on different sides of the map, and we were trying to get our things, get our terrain. But I love the terrain cards. That's a different thing where you're picking them up instead of the terrain cards, and you can throw them down, but it kind of gives you another thing to think about, because it's like, do I want to keep or build up some of these terrain cards? Hey, I see he's grabbing red and yellow a lot. I'm going to grab some terrain cards and make sure he doesn't have at least as much as me, so he's not going to be able to play that on a double score and get a double score there. So I like that it's like an indirect way of blocking, not necessarily blocking, but blocking them from getting the double points. Or you could use it on your own, which is kind of cool. It just gives you another layer of things to think about, which I think is cool because other than that, just the ferries, which is simple, everything else is pretty much the same. It's just a very hard map. You add the terrains. So I think, again, it's another great addition where each of these maps sort of fill a different niche. You've got the Switzerland, which is 2 or 3 players. You got Asia, which does teams. This one, which is super cutthroat. I love how they all have its own little, time where you would take it out. I really like this map. If you're a fan of Ticket to Ride and you're not afraid of playing very competitively for the most part and being in each other's face and being mean to each other, then it's okay. If you like to play a much more relaxing, non-cutthroat version, this probably is not the map for you, but occasionally you can have a game like that, like I discussed about my wife. So that's Heart of Africa, the expansion of Africa for Ticket to Ride.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.